What is up, Oklahoma fans, college football fans? Welcome into Oklahoma at the voice of college football. This is Oklahoma Sooners Live. Sorry, a little bit late. Just trying to get everything together and get going here. It's not going to be an extravagant show or anything like that. The Sooners season is over. Where does Oklahoma go from here? I've been very quiet since last Friday, and I guess I had a lot to say, yet nothing to say at all, I suppose. But we're going to get into it, talk a little bit about my reaction, I guess, after the fact, after I've had a little bit of time to cool down and kind of try to get over that loss, I suppose, and kind of talk about where Oklahoma goes from here. I will start off with a little bit of a bright note, kind of sunshine pump, if you will, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll kind of go from there because it really was a disappointing loss, and it's one that Oklahoma fans are going to hang on to for a long time. But first, if you're watching anywhere other than YouTube, jump over to the YouTube channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you want to help support us just a little bit further here at Oklahoma at the voice of college football, you can become a member for as low as $2.99 a month. Just click join. Go down below into the description below as well. There's a link there. So if you can't find that join button next to our channel, you can support us there. So of course, that's just a quick and easy way, fun way to help us and help us keep on growing and keep on growing a community here at Oklahoma at the voice of college football. Of course, Sooner Smiths on Mondays, and then of course Tuesdays and Thursdays here with myself. And I'm sure we'll be touching on other sports as well here as the football season has come to a close. I know we are Oklahoma at the voice of college football, but I know myself, Chad and Tierney, we're all fans of just Oklahoma. So we're going to be talking about the Oklahoma Sooners and our successes. And there's a lot of success to cheer about at Oklahoma. So we're going to be talking about all of that here in the offseason. But of course, keeping you up to date and keeping you in touch and kind of building a community around that a little bit and being able to get through the offseason, that's a big part of it. So I do want to start off as well. So I guess one more quick keeping the lights on thing. You can check out our merch shop. That link should be in the description below, but you can check out our merch shop. We've got all kinds of Oklahoma Voice of College Football merch and much more at vocfb.com/shop. Again, that link should be down below, but that's vocfb.com/shop. So if you want to help support the channel and support the network of Voice of College Football a little bit further, that is a great way to help us. But let's see, where do I want to start here? It's not going to be a whole lot in today's episode, but I will say, heading forward, looking at Oklahoma right now, I think you can look at this from the positive perspective and just take a step back at the entirety of the season and everything that we got throughout this season as Oklahoma fans, and I think you really can pull some sort of a positive note, just recognizing, let's start off, my prediction for this season and where I felt like there would be progress to be seen was an 8 or 9 win season. I think 8 or 9 wins, we would have all been sitting here saying, yeah, that's about what we could have expected out of the Sooners, and not really expected a whole lot more. And we got 10 wins out of the Sooners, and we got a lot of highs throughout this season. There were some lows. I think the only reason why there was a disappointment with this season is that we saw the capabilities of what this defense was able to do, and we know that with a little bit more on the other side, there could have been more. I will say that we'll get to that last game and kind of my reaction to the Alabama game, but I will say that in that Alabama game, it did feel like the defense didn't perform to their fullest capabilities. But we'll get to more on that in just a moment. But when we step back and look at this season, I do want to be that, like I said, sunshine pumper for everyone and just say, let's take a look back at the beginning of the season. I know several of you that join in the chat on the regulars, a lot of our viewers and listeners, a lot of our audience here at Oklahoma at the Voice of College Football, you all were very similar to me, where it was more or less like we don't have high expectations on this season. I sat here in this chair and predicted about an 8-4 season. And so when I step back and look at it, I will say I am incredibly proud of this team and what they fought through and fought for. And I want to start off with John Mateer on his entire season. He started off and gave us what we expected in the first 4 games or so, for sure against, I'd say, Michigan and Auburn. Those were 2 games where I think he performed what we would have expected outside of really the turnovers. I think obviously when a high risk, high reward type of quarterback with John Mateer, and that's what we got. That's what we expected. That's what we got. And I do think that he had a lot of growth. Now, that injury no doubt set him back, and there was more than just the thumb that set him back this season. And that's something that we have to note when looking at John Mateer. Now, he did not perform very well overall, and I think there was a lot that again, a lot of learning abilities throughout this season for John Mateer. And I will say I'm incredibly proud of how he performed given the circumstances. This offense could have been much better this season, no doubt. And again, we kind of walk away from a season saying just that. But I think overall, I am very proud of this team, how they performed. And I will say John Mateer, I am very, very proud, and we'll get to more on him and later on, but I'm very proud on how he closed this season out. Obviously, some disappointing things to take away from that Alabama game, and we'll talk about that as well. But I think if he were to decide to come back, which I think is the right move, we'll talk more about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. I think that the Sooners would be in a very good spot with him returning at the helm there at the quarterback position. This defense, obviously, man, as an Oklahoma fan, I hope that a lot of other Oklahoma fans are with me on this. I am extremely happy to know what we have in our defense. In the defense, when we look at Oklahoma going forward and what we should expect from a Brent Venables and Oklahoma defense, I personally am very happy to say that that's what we should expect. What we saw this year, I don't think you should expect much. Obviously, I don't think you should really expect more than what you saw this year. I think the defense was a very, very clearly a dominant and elite defense. But I think you should not expect much less than what you saw from the defense this season. So stepping back and looking at what you got from this team this year, especially given the circumstances, this was an incredibly positive year. Now, the sucky thing about it is that Texas should not have been a what feels like blowout loss the way that it was, and so that sucks. That hurts. And then of course just losing to your biggest rival on the biggest stage, that sucks. And then losing to Ole Miss, that game was in Oklahoma's grasp. That was 100% Oklahoma's for the taking. They had the ability to close that game out, and again, it felt like coaching decisions kind of kept them from winning that game, and so that one really hurt. So the way that Oklahoma dropped those two hurt, and I remember we got on here, and a lot of you in the chat, and some that aren't still with us in the chat because they come and go. We talked about it, and I said, "Calm down, guys. Like, I don't have faith that Oklahoma wins 10 games, but that's on the table." And sure enough, they proved even me wrong because I didn't think they'd be able to march into Neyland and then into Tuscaloosa and come away with 2 wins. Again, two games that those 2 weeks alone, really 3-week span, gave Oklahoma fans higher expectations from this team, higher hopes for this team. I'm not going to lie. Whenever Oklahoma beat Alabama, I said at least to myself, I don't think I've ever said this out loud, but man, like, could Oklahoma? I gave myself the hopes of, could Oklahoma be a contender for a national championship? And if I was being real with myself, I never thought that was truly the case, that they would really make it all the way or anything. But there was that glimmer of hope as a fan. That's what it means to be a fan. So when I get on social media and I just see fans doing nothing but run players and run coaches down, run the program down, and sit there and just harp on their own team that they consider themselves a fan of, I and then sit there and criticize other fans for being the complete opposite. Man, I think that's kind of crazy because being a fan truly is just being above and beyond for your team. And so, anyone, Stacy and is in the chat. Yeah, if and I'll throw her out there too. As she says, "I'm proud of this season. I was ready for the season and last year, and this year I'm missing it. I'm excited to see what happens with Team 132, and I am interested in the portal. Yeah, when we'll get to the portal, especially throughout this season, as the portal keeps on extending and growing. But because I guess the comment that really got me going with her is she said, "Join the Sunshine Pumper Club with us," and I'm there with you right now because I will say being a fan should be about that. And I guess if you want to call it Sunshine Pumper, whatever the term is that they want to throw out, but I really think that being happy about your team's successes, even when the season ends in a way that is so heartbreaking, and the way that loss happened was in the moment just infuriating. It was to the point where I was at a loss for words in many ways. Just like, how does such a thing happen? But to get to the playoffs, to host a playoff game, that was amazing in of itself. And yes, you know what? This year you do celebrate that because Oklahoma at the beginning of the season was not expected to do that from hardly anyone in the fan base, from hardly anyone outside in the media. Nobody really expected that from Oklahoma. So yes, you cherish that and you celebrate that. Okay, as a fan, I'm going to tell fans that that's what you should do. I can understand also that you should also be upset with how it went down and how it all ended. Both things can be true. And so now I want to lean into that part of where we can be upset as fans. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with being upset about your team either for those who sit there and say, "Oh, how dare you criticize?" Because you should be upset not with the team, but you should be upset with how it all ended. Because Oklahoma, the university, the program put on one of the most electric atmospheres that I had ever witnessed in college football, and that's saying a lot because I've witnessed a lot of college football, and I was too much of a wuss and didn't make it down there, and I kind of regret that in some regard, and obviously another sense. You know what? I think that I'm glad I wasn't there, but one of the most electric atmospheres in all of college football, and it sucks to say that, knowing that you didn't get to cherish it as what an amazing atmosphere that we can look back upon and be happy about. Because here's what to be pissed off about as an Oklahoma fan. Oklahoma's 0-5 in the playoffs. The term Choklahoma has every bit of a right to be floating around out there in the Twitterverse and out, wherever else other fans are calling Oklahoma Choklahoma. They have every bit of a right to call Oklahoma that because it just sucks to be there so many times. And one of the programs that has been there and tasted success, and of course, even dating back to Bob Stoops' days. That's why he was called Big Game Bob. Because, you get there against Boise, you get there against USC. Who else am I forgetting there? Florida. And you just can't close it out. And then, of course, throughout the playoffs against Clemson, against Georgia, against Alabama, you just can't close out those games. LSU, another one. So, the term Choklahoma, it's there for Oklahoma right now because that's what happens. And in no greater fashion than what happened last Friday. Oklahoma goes up 17-0, does everything correct. Oklahoma did everything like above and beyond what could have gone right, went right for Oklahoma, and what could have gone wrong went wrong for Alabama. And everything was painting itself out to Oklahoma is a true national championship contender, the way that they are handling this game in the first quarter and up until about I don't know, 10 minutes, whatever, left in the second quarter. And then everything that could go wrong for Oklahoma went wrong. And I know we've already talked about it at ad nauseum on the channel with Chad and Tierney, but the dropped pass that could have been a first down instead. Yes, with hindsight, you run it and you just get the first down. And ultimately in that game, and especially with that scenario, you do teach your players that you just get what you can get and you keep drives alive. And so, that's definitely there. where that is probably the right decision, but it was a perfect throw, if not perfect, a damn near close to perfect throw for John Mateer, and it was just a dropped pass. And you know what? On the other side of things, that just happens. Sometimes that happens. You hope it doesn't happen with your key and star players like Xavier Robinson, but sometimes that happens. As in the words of Forrest Gump, stuff happens. So you know what? That stuff is going to happen in games, and it sucks. What doesn't happen in games is Grayson Miller just dropping the punt. And again, that sucks for him. I don't like being critical on players, especially college players. I know that they get paid. I know all that stuff. I get that. I just don't like being critical on individuals unless it's totally necessary. And it hurts to say it, but I think Grayson Miller's case, it does feel very necessary because he just completely fumbled the bag, literally. Whatever happened there, that sucks. And if you just get that punt off, the game may not have flipped around in the way that it flipped around, because then Alabama goes down and scores, and then now with Alabama's score putting them in the ball game, now you get, you know, they're within 7 points at that time. Whenever the defense does their part, holds Alabama to just a field goal, if memory serves me correctly, and then the pressure is on the offense where they want to try to get down and score, where they really don't need to get too greedy. And John Mateer throws a terrible ball, and it was miscommunication, yes, but it was still a terrible ball, terrible, just one of the worst interceptions I think he'd thrown all season. And I might be wrong. There might have been one that was worse than that. And please correct me if I am wrong, but I don't remember a pass that was just as terrible as that pick six, and the disappointment in his eyes after he threw that too. And for him saying like, man, it was supposed to go here, and he went there, and what the heck? What just happened? We just gave this ball game over to them in a sense. Like we just gave them so much momentum, and the momentum really never swung back in Oklahoma's favor. I mean, it showed signs that it was leaning that way, but it never really swung back in Oklahoma's favor. And of course, Alabama on Alabama on the 34-7 run there on out. Just terrible. It was horrible. And I don't know if there was ever just a game that felt so disappointing and depressing in the way to lose it with the atmosphere. So what builds up is the atmosphere and what could have been. You know, if Oklahoma wins that game with that atmosphere, just imagine the memories that we have living on forever. But now we have the memories of looking back and seeing that atmosphere all for nothing, all for playing many men in Alabama's favor. And I know that was their song. That's all kind of BS. Yeah, I got them hyped up. Sure, they can say that all they want, but it definitely got Oklahoma rallied up. It's just that when Deion Burks scores that touchdown, the momentum really didn't swing in their favor. And momentum is everything in any sport. I think in football, I mean, really any sport, it's extremely important. But nonetheless, man, yeah, it just sucks. It really does. It sucks to lose the game that way, where it was Oklahoma just creating the stuff. And so I do want to address one narrative that goes on. So a lot of Alabama fans kind of coming out at Oklahoma fans on social media. See, this is how we felt because we were better in the statistic game and you guys beat us that first time around. That's exactly how we felt. No. That's not how you felt, because how you felt was incorrectly assuming that those stats were telling the story that you played a better game, but that wasn't the case. First of all, Oklahoma forced turnovers. And I'm saying that was intentional with Oklahoma, and you can come at me all you want with that, but Oklahoma jumped that slant for the pick six. Oklahoma, Jaden Hardy on that fumble punched that ball out with intention, with an anger behind that. That was forced by Oklahoma. Was it Heineke or Wine? I believe it was Heineke, right? That came in there and forced that strip sack. He forced that. There wasn't anything that was really forced from Alabama. For Alabama, and I'm not trying to talk down Alabama because Alabama deserves all the praise. I feel like that's the wrong way to come about it. Alabama deserves all the praise. They won that game, right? They won that game. I'm just saying that the scenario is not the same for Oklahoma, because for Oklahoma, what I'm trying to say is Alabama got that pick six, and that was earned. It was an earned pick six, but it was just a terrible throw that John Mateer kind of gave away. That's the type of turnovers that you don't really, if I can word this properly, it's more of that flukish type of turnover, I guess. That's not really the right way to say it either, because again, it was earned. Okay, I don't want to take that away from Alabama. Alabama earned this win 100%. With all the momentum swinging in Oklahoma's favor, going up 17-0, for Alabama to somehow find a way to find hope in that and come back and win, they deserve the praise for that. And so I don't want to take any of that away from them. But for what I'm saying for the Oklahoma's perspective is, Oklahoma had that game, and there was no way that Alabama could take that from them without all these just complete screw-ups. Grayson Miller dropped that punt. John Mateer threw that interception. And, it wasn't that there was just a huge hit that Alabama had on Grayson Miller or got back there fast enough to block the punt. It was just he dropped it. And John Mateer just made the totally wrong decision. That wasn't a decision made by Alabama. That's kind of what I'm trying to say there, where the game, I mean, Oklahoma didn't play better than Alabama, and so that whole narrative. And going back to the first game, Alabama had so much field to work with every single drive. Oklahoma didn't. Oklahoma started across the 50, I believe, 5 times in that game against Alabama the first game. They did, I mean, they had way better field position in the second game as well, for the most part. Until everything just went wrong for Oklahoma. But I'm just trying to say that it's not the same for the 2 losses, but it's still all the praise goes to Alabama for the win. I just want to make that clear. It's just that the way that Oklahoma fans feel about this loss is not comparable to the way that Alabama felt about it. And hopefully that made some sense, where it was just given away, and Oklahoma forced that. They gave it away. Now Alabama to find that and take advantage of that. That's where the credit gets given to Alabama. The credit has to be given to Alabama, because you don't just go down 17-0 and one chance is given to you. You can take that one chance, or you could blow that one chance. And then another opportunity is given to you, and you capitalize on it. That again, that's where I'm giving praise to Alabama. But for Oklahoma to lose that game, the way that it went down, being up 17-0, to go on a 34-7 negative run, I guess, for Alabama to go on a 34-7 run against Oklahoma, that's where it just absolutely kills. And to end the season, now Oklahoma fans have to carry that on through the offseason. But again, I want to jump back to the whole sunshine pumper thing, because too much depression and all of that. Just recognize that you should have these expectations for Oklahoma. As Oklahoma fans, you should have the same expectations of this season for Oklahoma going into next season. And really early, looking through it, I think 10-2 is 100% on the table. Of course, it kind of like we're going to talk about that closer to time, but we will get into not this week because it's Christmas week. So first of all, Merry Christmas to everybody. So we won't have a Thursday show this week. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm not going to get on here on Christmas Day, but I do want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. Hopefully you guys enjoy the tree. We had to put that in the studio, set that up. But first of all, congratulations to Alabama. I am really happy for them. I just hate that I have to be happy for them that they had to beat my team in order to do it. So yeah, no doubt it was just the way that they took advantage of all the mishaps that Oklahoma had and somehow found a way to claw their way back into it, man. I just, I have the utmost respect for Kalen DeBoer and that whole squad. And Ty Simpson, the way that he found a way to keep poised when that was the total opposite game plan for Alabama. Everyone was saying it all week. If Alabama gets off to a slow start, they're done. If Ty Simpson gets disrupted early, he's done. Guess what happened? Alabama got off to a slow start. Ty Simpson got demolished early. He got disrupted early, and he got thrown off his game plan early, and he panicked a little bit early. But instead of doing what they've done in the past against Oklahoma and against Georgia in the SEC championship game, he found a way to fight back and find confidence in his game again. And that's where all the praise needs to be given to Alabama. So it sucks for Oklahoma, but what's going forward, that's what we're going to talk about more. So again, really, really happy for how the season came out. I 10-2. All right, just looking at the 10-2, I didn't expect it. I know Stacy called it at the beginning of the season. I was expecting 8 or 9 wins. I really was. I knew that 10-2 was on the table. I knew that if things fell together, now they didn't fall into place the way that I thought they would either. And I don't think really anyone expected such a lopsided, defensive, heavily led team. I think I would assume that a lot of people expected this offense to be a little bit more explosive and a little bit more strategic and more capable. But we got to 10-2. We'll just try to forget about the 3 part. Anyways, it really was, man. It was a great year overall, and that's what I want to hone in on. But that game definitely sucked for Oklahoma fans, no doubt. And again, props to Alabama. I think the Alabama-Indiana game is going to be so much fun. Personally, I have to cheer for Indiana. I grew up in Indiana, guys. I've mentioned this on the show. I grew up in Indiana, been to a ton of Indiana Hoosier games. And so I want to cheer for Alabama. I really do. And I'll be happy for Alabama if they win. And I'll be cheering for them in some regard. But Indiana's got my heart. So I grew up there, went to so many Hoosier games, and so I'll definitely be happy for them moving on. But again, very, very happy for Alabama moving forward. Good for them. And to fight back in the season that they've had, too, starting off with a terrible loss to Florida State and finding their way through it. Everyone said that they didn't belong in the playoffs. So kudos to them. Maybe not happy for them, because I'm really not. That's a lie. But kudos to them. That's probably the correct term to use. But Stacy says, I was tired too, and I just accepted the loss quickly. However, none of us, including me, expected us to go to the playoffs. I hate the term Oklahoma. Ready to see us get over that obstacle. Yeah, I hate the term too, but it's deserving, right? Absolutely, I hate it. And the fact that the team just didn't lose confidence in this season, man, that's what really. Because they were hard to kill. And even in that last game against Alabama, they were still hard to kill. Alabama had to try to find a way, clawing back from 17-zip. So, I mean, it definitely hard to kill. Just hopefully we can repeat it with more success and a little bit less downs next season, right? And I will say, just because Oklahoma went 10-2 this season does not mean that they are bound to be better next year. I will put that preface out there. Anyways. Thunder Blue says, Jimmy, not going to work with Mateer running 18 times a game. It's not sustainable. And I think I probably missed Jimmy's. Okay, up here, Jimmy says, need to get Mateer a run game to take some stuff off his plate. So I guess going back to what Thunder Blue said, anyways, Thunder Blue, I think what Jimmy's saying is you have to get running backs, a traditional run game to help John Mateer. I do want John Mateer back, and I see Nicholas says, I agree completely with you. I definitely want Mateer back. I think he makes a jump considering this was his first year in the SEC and he didn't have a strong supporting cast around him. I don't even think it was the supporting cast around him either. The offensive line had some shakeups. I wish we just started Fabechi Wiwu at center all season long, because that offensive line looked really good for the most part. I would say I'd have to watch the game back, which I'm not going to do, but I'd have to watch the game back. From what I recall, I just remember being in awe of how that offensive line looked for a majority of the game. I think that was, man, maybe generous, but a B+ game for that offensive line. And I liked the way they looked overall. I really did. So yeah, really solid stuff. I don't think so much the supporting cast, but I think the injury, like I said, the injury and all the mental stuff that went on with that. Uh, and again, his first year in the SEC, we have to be honest with that. He wasn't going to step into the SEC and light it up the way that we wanted him to, no doubt. Ja'Cory, I appreciate you being in the chat, and I guess I didn't even realize that you were in the chat. But again, kudos to Alabama. Really good game from them. And it just sucks the way that it went down. I will be cheering for Alabama as much as I can, but like I said, my heart's with Indiana. I grew up there, man. I can't go away from that. Let's see here. Just trying to get through everybody's. Again, super chats will always be read in the in the live shows. Super chats will always be read. Makes it easier for us to just those super chats pop up there and stick to the page for us, so we know to get to them. So super chats will always be read, and of course, it supports the show just a little bit further as well. But Thunder Blue says when Mateer runs 18 times and throws 30 to 35 times, running backs aren't going to get any stats. Well, in that Alabama game, I think John Mateer should have ran 18 to 20 times and 25 times if you have to, because it's going to work. Now, it didn't work very often in that Alabama game, but when the traditional run game wasn't going to be there for you, that's what you had to lean on. I do think that the traditional run game worked just fine, so I do wish that Oklahoma would have leaned more on that. I felt like the whole season, it just felt like the coaching staff didn't think that the traditional run game was going to work, when every time that they really got it into rhythm, it worked. And so that was probably the most frustrating thing about this entire season. Do you blame that on DeMarco Murray, or do you blame that on Ben Arbuckle? I do not know, because I'm not in those meetings. So what happens in those meetings is DeMarco Murray, really all the position groups. DeMarco Murray, you've got all the position groups: wide receiver, offensive line, running backs, tight ends coach, your quarterbacks coach, and then of course your offensive coordinator. When they get in those coaching offensive meetings, they're going through and trying to make a game plan together. And when they make that game plan, DeMarco Murray will have his say on what running backs get the ball and what situations and all that kind of stuff. And so he will be a part of that. I think they did better this year. I do think that when X-Rob wasn't healthy, Blaylock was getting the carries. And when Blaylock wasn't healthy, X-Rob was getting the carries. I don't really disagree so much with that. But what I disagree most with, again, was just how often we tried to get those running backs into rhythm. And it just never felt like they really tried to get them and keep them into rhythm all season long. So hopefully that's something that we learn from in this offseason, I suppose. I don't know how much you can really hope for that, but I will hope for it anyways. Aim roll. Okay, so I'm assuming a Bama fan says still bitter about the loss, but got to give. Okay, never mind. Oklahoma fan, sorry. Still bitter about the loss, but got to give credit to Bama. They made adjustments when it mattered most. DeBoer, Grubb, and Womack dialed up a great game plan after the 17-0 deficit, and then So I think carries that on. BV and Arbuckle couldn't adjust properly, and it showed. Yeah, no doubt. And it really was the fact that they, again, keeping their team poised for what feels like, if I'm in that situation and I'm down 17-0 that quick, and it just feels like nothing has gone right. Because let's remember, when Oklahoma was up 17-0, I'm pretty sure that Oklahoma was nearly triple, or maybe even more than triple, the yardage of Alabama, and they hadn't gotten a first down. And finally, I think on that first scoring drive, they finally got a first down, and it just rolled after that. They got a first down, they got a first down, they got a touchdown. So it was just one of those things that they just found that was really the deciding factor for them. And so for them, that was the turnaround. For Oklahoma, the collapse for Oklahoma was the Xavier Robinson drop leading to the fumble, and then the fumble and the punt, and then the pick six. That was Oklahoma's beginning to the collapse. But for the beginning of Alabama's run back, that's why I say the prop still goes to Alabama, because they found a way when nothing was going right for them. They found a way to get down get their first down and just roll with it and score. And so that was really huge. And so, yeah, no doubt, I think a lot of credit needs to be given to Alabama, where when we complain about Oklahoma and all of the screw ups, it's going to sound like we're not giving credit there where credit's due. And that's not at all what I mean to do. So, yeah, credit to Alabama and the whole coaching staff. Nicholas says, Thunderblue, I'm tired of people putting all the blame on Mateer. Don't blame Mateer for no run game, bad O-line play, no tight ends, no strong support around him. And I don't think anybody's blaming Mateer for it, but ultimately I do think just the coaching, when you sit there and you have to either find a way, you either have to find a way to get that traditional run game going, or you have to lean on the quarterback run. And the plus side of the quarterback run is that you've got an extra blocker out there because you've got your running back blocking for you as well. That's the plus side of the running back quarterback run. And with that, John Mateer is also extremely elusive. And so that's kind of a little bit that goes into that. But anyways, let's jump into transfer portal really quick, because I don't think that really anything yet has been too much of a huge shock for Oklahoma or anything that Oklahoma can't overcome. I will say that just keep your eye out, because the official window will open on it doesn't open until January 2nd, and it stays open, I believe, until the 12th, the 16th. I know I have that date somewhere down in my notes, so I'll get to it. But anyways, that window opens. So when that window is open, that's when players can jump into the portal. And one thing that I think they're trying to, so it's the 16th. It closes on the 16th. And so players can jump into the portal in that window from the January 2nd through the 16th. So currently right now, players are just saying, I'm expecting to jump to the portal. Just giving a heads up to the fan base, to the program, to the coaches, and to get their names on the board so people can start to reach out to them, I guess, legally, even though we know it happens, whatever. But it's basically putting their name out there saying, hey, I'm going to be available. And you want to get in as soon as possible, because once that board starts to clutter up and you start to get a lot of people on that board, a lot of other players, they're going to start going. And so maybe this team over here needs that wide receiver, and you're now in the portal. They can pick up that wide receiver. They can plan for that wide receiver. If you don't jump in until late, they might have already decided to go with a player. So, we're not really going to find anything out in terms of where they're going or anything like that. We have some indication. We're not really going to find that out until about January 2nd. And once that new year hits, you're really going to start to hear a lot of names probably jumping in there, and some that we really hate to see go. I won't mention really any of the names. There's a lot of names that I could throw out there as guys that we're going to hate if we see their name jump in there. But for right now, we've got Jaden Gibson was transferring out. That's not really anything of a shocking news. Kendall Dolby was another one that we figured. My hope for Kendall Dolby was that he just didn't get the play time this year. He knows the system. He's good in the system. So I was really hopeful that he would just use that red shirt to stick back and stay here another year, and then build off that in the system that he's got and get healthy, come back. And of course, we knew that he was going to be transferring out, especially whenever it got down to playoff time. He wasn't really a part of the team anymore. And so he ended up, he is planning on declaring for the portal. And again, too, let's remember, too, I want to stress this as Oklahoma fans: just because a player jumps in the portal and you really want him to come back, don't sit there and trash them on social media and run them out of town, because just like David Stone, there's a lot of people that had to delete a lot of tweets. Just saying that, but ultimately, yeah, we know. Anyways, I'm just putting that out there, but I don't think there's too much of a surprise. Kobe McKenzie was another one that I think was a bit of a surprise to a lot, but it's understanding because he was performing well. I believe he had 32 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss this year. But then he ended up losing his starting position over to Owen Heineke. So he started to lose some of his production and started to lose, not his production, but started to lose some of his playing time. And so that's where I understand his decision to leave. Kobe McKenzie, I mean, he did it right. It's just that things started to not go in his favor. That playtime started to not really be there for him anymore because other guys started to step up and kind of earn that playtime above him. And so I understand. I wish the best for him. He's definitely one of those guys that, man, it sucks to see him go. But yeah, I understand it. Caden Helms, this was a guy that, I mean, I want him to come back to Oklahoma really bad. Caden Helms is a tight end that four-star prospect that just never got his chance. Seems like injuries just always kept him out. And man, I feel like Caden Helms is that guy that if we can get him back some way, I think that would be huge. But I also, again, understand because the tight end room has just not been there for him, and he's been held back from injuries. And so, anyways, going on. Jacob Sexton, that's another one that sucks to see him go, but I get it. I think we're gonna see some guys come in and some guys leave in the on the offensive line, and we'll get to that here in just a second. But yeah, I think Jacob Sexton, not really much of a surprise there. That was kind of expected coming up to the point. And then Javonte Barnes was one that I didn't have on there. Really sucks to see him go, but again, another guy that did it the right way. I expected him to leave, and he just never could get the play time. And that speaks to the talent that was in that room when you've got guys like Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock, and then of course Javonte Barnes, and you've got what could have been. I don't have no idea what happened there, and that sucks to talk about. But and then of course you've got Taylor Tatum and what he could have been. So when you've got the depth that Oklahoma had there in that room, and then of course Torrey Blaylock jumping up with all the production that he showed early on in the season and kind of stealing that 1-2 spot with Xavier Robinson, I understand it with Javonte Barnes. Sucks to see him go because he was a program guy. He loves Oklahoma. And so I wish him nothing but the best. But so far, really nothing shocking. There are some that would really hurt Oklahoma in their future and some that would be just detrimental blows for Oklahoma. I think the biggest one right now is probably, Kobe McKenzie sucks. I don't want to see him go because I think he would have a huge role next season because Kip Lewis probably going to the draft. Heineke may not come back. That's all depending on whether his appeal gets approved or not. So we may really miss Kobe McKenzie. And if that appeal ends up coming back rejected, he may withdraw his name. Who knows? And so I will throw that potential out there, but most likely Kobe McKenzie gone. That one sucks. Caden Helms, again, another tight end. I would love to have him there in the room. And he could be big for Oklahoma. But I do think that there's some targets out there that could be talked about that Oklahoma's ready for. And then, of course, some young guys coming in as well. Big picture, kind of looking at the big picture thing, you really don't have huge departures that are going to kill you in terms of transfer portal. I think the guys that have lost years of eligibility due to playing for too long, mainly. You've got guys like Deion Burks and Satania and trying to run down the list of guys. Jaron Canick, sucks to see him go. Who else am I missing? We've got R. Mason Thomas leaving. You've got guys like that are moving on. That sucks to see them go, and they're probably a bigger hit to the program than so far what we've seen in the transfer portal. And we will see more in the transfer portal that will be big blows, no doubt. But right now it seems like there's three of the ones that I listed, three of the six that we've got right now. It's all injury related, which kind of begs the question of does Oklahoma still have some concern in that regard in their health and medical staff effectiveness? So something to take note of. Does that keep on happening, or do we find ways to fix that and correct that? It feels like it had been much better this year, but still showing some signs of that, which we would really like to eliminate. But anyways, let's go on. All right, we talked about John Mateer a little bit, and I want to, I really don't have much more to say about John Mateer, I guess, but I will say that with John Mateer, I want him to come back. I really do. I think that this feels like with all the momentum from the Tennessee game, the Alabama game, he performed better the first go around. Even in the first half of that Alabama game, before the pick six, and even after the pick six, John Mateer looked fairly good. And I would say after the pick six to some extent, but there was some really good signs of what John Mateer had progressed in. And so we love to see that. I want John Mateer back because what we saw in the Michigan game, what we saw in the Auburn game, what we saw, obviously looking at the Temple the Temple and Illinois State game, but what we saw from John Mateer in the Tennessee game, what we saw from, I guess, second half, and what we saw from him and what he was able to do to help manage that offense throughout that second half of the season, there was a lot of things that you saw that were positives from John Mateer. Now, does that mean that he's going to come in and be a better quarterback next year, that he's going to be what we saw in that first quarter? I don't know. I really don't know if that's going to happen. But I have a lot of faith that would happen with getting right in the offseason, coming back with some of that SEC experience. There's a lot that I think we could build off with John Mateer. So personally, I'm in the camp that I want to see John Mateer come back. I think that Oklahoma would be better off with him back than trying to fix things with a young quarterback going into next season. But I could be wrong, and I'm open to that. I bookmark it. Go ahead. Anyways, I really do think that there are ways that you can look at John Mateer's progress and really feel good about it. And I saw this one pop up, and I'm assuming you're talking about me talking about John Mateer here. Yeah, I watched the LSU game. Did you also see the wind that was swirling in that LSU game? You've got to recognize some of that. Okay, there's some things that if you haven't played the game in those circumstances, maybe you really don't have a full grasp of it, and how much that really does affect it. I would think just by watching the game and understanding the game that you would understand that the wind is going to affect a quarterback's passing. And you saw it from both quarterbacks. So, yeah, I mean, the LSU game was definitely not one to be like, see, John Mateer sucks. It did suck. He did have a terrible game, but the wind was causing it to sail. The wind was causing it to dive. There's a lot with that. But anyways, John Mateer will get better in the offseason, and he's got a lot of learning that he had this season that really prepares him for next season. So why not go with an experienced guy that showed in that look at that first quarter against Alabama. That's what you got out of him. And really, outside of that pick six, there really wasn't anything bad from John Mateer. So really solid game from him overall. Anyways, I will say for Oklahoma's portal needs, as of right now, what I would anticipate Oklahoma's needs, you want offensive line, you want depth, you also want maybe a couple of big pieces that you can really solidify in that. And I think there's for sure one big target that Oklahoma will pull in. I don't have anybody specific on the top of my mind, but I do think there is one big offensive lineman that they're going to pay some cash for. So I think that's one. Then over at tight end, there's already some swirls of rumors of tight ends that have already entered their name into the portal. I think Oklahoma will try to wait it out and see if there are any other bigger targets out there, but I do like the targets that have been thrown out so far for Oklahoma. Tight end is one that you need to add at least depth and get a star in there, because you don't want to have to lean on a young guy. But if that young guy were to step up and to fit into that role, heck yeah, let's do it. 3, linebacker. I think you've got to go out and look for a solid linebacker, similar to what they did with Kendall Daniels this past offseason and bringing him in. So getting a linebacker with McKenzie leaving, you want some more depth there in the linebacker room. And then I would say secondary is number 4, just for depth purposes. You really didn't have much depth with Gentry Williams out. It seemed like Jacoby Johnson really wasn't. I almost said Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Johnson wasn't really in there too much this year. But anyways, that really felt like you could have had a little bit more depth there where it started to build. You definitely saw some depth build there in the secondary, but I definitely think that the secondary is where they're going to try to get a target. The obvious ones, you're going to get some wide receivers in, and you're going to get some guys that are underrated wide receivers is what I think their targets are. From what my understanding is of where Oklahoma is looking, I think they are going to look for underrated Jim Nagy type wide receivers, like what we got out of Keontez Lewis, which I'm happy with. I think Isaiah Satania was an underrated wide receiver get, and obviously I think he proved that this season with what he did for Oklahoma. But with Keontez Lewis, even with Giovanni Gibson, we saw glimpses of what he did. He just didn't really get to showcase everything. But those are the type of wide receivers they're going to get. So you're not going to. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money on a wide receiver, because the wide receiver room coming in the 2026 class has a capability of contributing very quickly. Anyways. Outside of that, I think that's the big ones. You are going to look at running back probably and trying to add to the depth, and I think that's probably a possibility. There's a lot of other position groups that they're probably going to dabble in here and there. But anyways, again, just remember January 2nd to the 16th. I believe I have those dates right. I wrote them down. I didn't look them up, so please correct me if I'm wrong. That's just what I was remembering off of the top of my head whenever I was typing down my notes. But obviously, you should expect more announcements between now and New Year's. And once January 2nd hits, until about the 8th, you're going to see some, just a lot of names being thrown in there in the transfer portal, and possibly a lot from Oklahoma. Who knows? It's just a crazy day. I like following the transfer portal. The transfer portal is a lot of fun, but I also hate it because I am a traditionalist when it comes to, I want to see guys stick it out 4 years and then go to the pros. But I also understand in a lot of their circumstances, I wish that we would cut the transfer portal down to about like a one transfer limit, something like that, some sort of accountability. That's where I stand with that. But anyways, the transfer portal, we will keep on top of it as much as we can here. Anyways, let's jump over to the chat really quick. Let's see. Got to scroll up here. Again, super chats will be read live, so if you want your chat read, then make sure to drop it in a super chat form. Nicholas says, do you think there are any position coaching changes? I don't think so. Just because all the guys that you would have thought would have been gone are still in the room, and they're still working. And the position group, the position coaches that you would have expected to be fired actually had a pretty good season and recruiting season specifically. And I'm talking about Joe John Finley, really good recruiting season with, was it Ruxer, Tyler Ruxer, right? Bringing him in. And then what they could do in the portal, you're seeing position group changes that are rumored. I think a lot of them are rumors, and from some sources they have said, I don't know where you're getting that information or where these rumors are coming from. So anyways, I will say that. Anyways, I wanted to get to one that I saw pop up, and I'm probably missing it. Okay, so yeah, Jacory, he said, when Alabama won, I told an Oklahoma fan, good game, and he just straight up cussed me out and dropped the F-bomb on me. I will say, you're going to get those fans, even in Oklahoma, and I feel like they are increasingly growing at Oklahoma, and I hate that. I believe that Oklahoma is one of the few that are still standing where we do have a lot of traditional Oklahoma fans left where they will tell you good game back. And so I apologize if that happened to you. I hate those kinds of fans. I really do. I hate them in any circumstance. Let's see. So I remember going to Iowa State games, and the way that I was treated there was extremely poor. Hated that. Ohio State, man, I got shoes thrown at me. I got beer kind of tossed in not directly at me, but up in my section because we were around a bunch of Oklahoma fans. Hate guys like that. So just, I'm sorry that happened. And but I know that those are going to be in every fan base. And I'm sure Oklahoma fans could say, oh, yeah, well, listen to the stories about Alabama fans. I've met some really cool Alabama fans. So, you know what? I'm very close friends with a lot of Alabama fans. I also know a lot of nasty Auburn fans. One of the guys that I'm really close to is an Auburn guy. Same with any fan base. There are very few Texas guys that I really know that I feel like I can. There's one that I can think of that I can get along with, but that's just because I don't really know personally a lot of Texas people. But anyways, no, I apologize that happened from our fan base to yours, and good luck to you. Like I said, I'm gonna be cheering on my home state, what I consider to be a home state, but anyways, it will be a good game. It's going to be a fun one. I'm expecting low scoring, but I also think Alabama has the upper hand in that game. I really think Alabama is going to win that one. So good luck to you guys there on out. Let's see here. Aim roll. It says if they can get Sammy Brown or Keaton Thomas from the portal, that'll be amazing. Sammy Brown, I think that's a very, very solid name being thrown out there that I feel confident so far from what I have heard. But right now it's really early too. So you can have a lot of speculations. You're going to hear a bunch of speculations in the transfer portal, and they're all going to sound, with hindsight, they're going to sound like, where did that even come from? So just throwing that out there. But yeah, there's a lot of names that I could probably go down right now. It's just too early because it's not even officially open. So players aren't even supposed to be contacted yet, technically. So anyways, we'll get to more transfer portal, and we will definitely keep up with the transfer portal as much as possible. I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas. If you want to wish us a Merry Christmas at Oklahoma, the voice of college football, hit that like button and hit subscribe. You can also follow us on social media. We'll try to be more active, especially here in the off season, and get a little bit more active on social media. But you can follow us, especially on X and Instagram. We're working on things to do on Twitter. Not Twitter, but X and Instagram, but we're working on things to do on TikTok. But you can follow us over there. It's just Oklahoma VOCFB. Oklahoma VOCFB. Follow us on social media. And then, of course, just become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. That helps support us here, helps us keep on growing. We are trying to grow the community here at Oklahoma, the voice of college football. So become a member today for as low as $2.99 a month. It just helps us keep on growing with the channel that we've got here with Chad and Tierney and I, and the team that we've got behind us as well at the voice of college football. Anyways, we appreciate everybody so much for all the love and all the support. It's going to be a long off season. I know it, but we're going to get through it together. So stay tuned here, and we'll catch you next time. Have a Merry Christmas. We'll be back next Monday with Sooner Smiths, and then again Tuesday, carrying on our normal schedule as much as possible. Merry Christmas, everyone. Boomer, we'll catch you.